Okay, so we've got our sphere bouncing like it's under the influence of gravity, and you know the amount of acceleration that an object has, it's determined by the mass of the object and the mass of the medium, like air that it's coming through. If something was bouncing underwater, of course it'd have a whole different look to it, but this is fine for now. And now the next thing we need to address is the fact that the sphere is squishing before it actually reaches the ground. And remember, we said we could set a whole bunch of keyframes to do that, but we can also do it very quickly in the graph editor with something called StepTangents. And that's just one of those little controls, one of those tools up above the graph. So let's get to that. And we're going to come in, and we have to make sure our sphere is selected. Just choose our 3 scale channels here, and then click the F key. F is for frame, and it'll actually make this now take up most of the screen, so you get a lot better look at what's going on here. And you see one going to the bottom, getting smaller, going down to 0.6, that's our Y, and then 2 which are right on top of each other that are getting larger, 1.291 I think it is, that's our X and Z. So, you know, they squish coming into the center, which is keyframe 12, and then unsquish going out. So the first thing we need to do is get rid of that squishing that's happening between frame 1 and 12. And we'll take these one at a time. So come in here and select any one of them. I'm going to select Scale X, and now do a marquee select on this first keyframe. And then come up here to the top to this tool right here, which is the StepTangents tool, and just click on it, and bang. Now it may look like that spline actually went away, but actually it's just right along this grid line here on the bottom, and then the one going vertically up to the top here. So that's what we want. So we just want to do that same thing to these other 2. So scale Y. Scale Y is the one that goes down, so select that. StepTangents, again, it looks like it went away, but it's just along the grid line. Scale Z. And there we go. Okay, so those are all changed. And now let's take a look. And remember, we might be dropping out a few frames as this happens, but we should be able to see it at least a little bit. So we'll come in here and start the animation. And there we go. And yeah, we're losing a few frames, but you can see, and we can actually scrub through it here, so let's do that. So we'll come to frame 11 and 12, and you see there it is. And then we've got things coming back to where we want them at the end, but maybe a little too slow. So we'll deal with that next. So now we want to talk about ways to alter the right half of these animation splines for the scale X, Y, and Z. And again, as with anything, there's lots of ways to do this. We could just come into the handles on the right side and move those, which would change the curve that they were attached to, associated with. But we're going to do it a little different way, just to show you a couple more things that you can do in Maya. And what we're going to do is add keyframes to the individual animation channels here in the graph editor. And then we're going to manipulate the position of them a little bit. So let's get to that. So we'll select the Scale X. And then right here, this tool is called Add Keys tool. So we choose it, and then come over to frame 16 on this animation spline, and we're going to add a key, and we do that with a middle mouse click. And there we go. Okay. So that's it. It's there. It really hasn't done much of anything. But we're going to change the position so we make sure the key is selected and our translate tool is selected, and then middle click and drag. And there we go. Dragging it down closer to 100% so the squish sort of dissipates a little faster. Now the shape of this spline, now that we've moved this keyframe down, you can see it curves a lot at the start, frames like 13, 14, 15, 16, and then it's less curvy after that. Maybe that's what we want, maybe it's not what we want. We can change how this spline comes into and goes out of this keyframe by moving the ends of this control handle on the keyframe. So we just come in here and marquee select on an end and just move it. And our translate tool needs to be selected, which it is. So there it is. You know, it's just a little tiny little change. A lot of these changes most people wouldn't even notice who are watching the animation, but you have to decide how much of that detail you want to put into your project. So let's just move on to the next one, which is the Y, and select the add key and select the spline, and then mouse center click, and there's our key, and marquee select, drag it. Okay, that's good. And then we'll just select our key, select the end control, middle click, move it. And this one's the one going in the other direction. I mean, these don't have to be smooth like that, but okay, we'll select our add key, spline selected, middle click. There it is. And click off the spline. Then we'll marquee select the keyframe. And then we'll middle click and drag it down. The translate tool is still selected. And then click off. And click on it again. Select the handle at the end. Middle click. Move it to smooth things out a bit. Okay, that's good. And we'll come in and play it. And looking better. You know, the how quickly the deflection rebounds here, it's kind of controlled by what kind of material this is and how much it stretches or squashes actually to begin with. You know, if it's a beach ball, something very squishy, it's going to deflect a lot more than if it's a hard rubber ball. Just something for you to think about as you're making your choices for your animation. But that's it. Now we have one more thing to deal with here, and that is the fact that frame 1 and frame 24 are identical. And as we play the animation, that makes the sphere sort of pause slightly too long at the top of the arc. And maybe you like that for some sort of artistic reason, but to get closer to reality, you probably don't want both of those frames there. Now we've got a keyframe at 24, so we can't just delete it, but what we can do is set the animation that we're actually going to play to be slightly shorter. So let's come in here, and instead of 1 to 24, let's just change this to be 1 to 23. And now we've got 23 frames in our sliders. The frames still exist, they're just not there. Now the bounce is a little bit more realistic. So that's the way we're going to leave it. We're going to actually make this a 23 frame animation. We'll save it. We'll get our student version message. Okay, and that's it. That's what we're going to do with animation for this project. It's, you know, you could spend a lifetime making things better and a little bit more of this and a little bit more of that, but that's enough for now. And we're going to move on to adding lighting. Well, Up to now we've been using the default lighting, but now we're going to add scene lighting and change some render settings and add a real camera and all those last little details to make this a real animation project. So that's going to happen over the next couple of chapters, and we'll see you there.